Hi everyone, my name is Peyton Stowell, and today I'll be presenting on the complex and fascinating issue of artificial intelligence and copyright. Specifically, I'll be arguing why AI generated content, even when combined with human input, should not, in most cases, be eligible for copyright protection. As we move deeper into an age where artificial intelligence can create everything from paintings to novels, it's very critical that we very carefully consider what truly deserves legal protection. First, I will provide you all with a very quick overview of what I will be covering today. So first, we will look at some basic principles of copyright law. After that, we will discuss the new challenges artificial intelligence presents to these long-standing ideas. I will walk you through two important examples. First, the Zaria of the Dawn case, as we discussed in class, and then I will be discussing the recent registration of a piece called A Single Piece of American Cheese. Finally, I will explain why I believe human authorship must remain the gold standard for copyright, and why AI outputs, even with human arrangement, generally should not qualify. So let's start with a basic overview of what copyright is. Copyright is a legal protection given to creators of original works. These can include books, paintings, music, films, photographs, and so much more. In order for a work to be copyrightable, it must exist in a tangible form, be a work of authorship, be original, and meet the requirements regarding the nationality of the author. The key principle is that copyright rewards human creativity. It exists to recognize and incentivize original human thought, effort, and personal expression. Without that human element, without that spark of originality, copyright law does not apply. In other words, copyright is not just about the end product, it's about the creative process that led to it. So, all of that being said, AI is now challenging those traditional ideas. Modern AI systems such as Midjourney and ChatGPT and so many others can generate highly impressive outputs with very little human involvement. A few typed prompts can produce a full piece of artwork or even pages of readable writings and stories. The problem is that AI doesn't create the way in which humans create. It doesn't feel, think, or have personal experiences. It's simply remixing existing information in ways that appear creative, but are actually algorithmic. So when an AI generates 90% of a work, can the humans still claim that it's theirs? I personally believe that the answer is no, or at least not in the same way as traditional authorship goes. Referring back to the example we discussed in class, one of the most important cases so far is Zaria of the Dawn. So just to give a quick recap, Chris Castanova, the creator, used Midjourney AI to generate images for a comic book while personally writing the storyline, arranging the panels, and developing the narrative. When Castanova applied for copyright, the U.S. Copyright Office granted protection, but only for the human-authored parts, which was the text, the story sequence, and the arrangement of the work. The AI-generated images themselves were excluded from this protection. This decision sends a powerful message. That message is that creativity and expression come from human beings and not from the tools that we use. And honestly, I completely agree with this outcome. Before diving into the more recent case of a work titled A Single Piece of American Cheese, which took place in January 2025, it's important to quickly provide some background regarding the new guidelines from the U.S. Copyright Office that came out in 2024. These new rules make it clear. If something is generated by artificial intelligence without meaningful human involvement, it's not eligible for copyright protection. Simply typing a few prompts into a machine, even if the output looks impressive, doesn't automatically make someone the legal author. The Copyright Office says that human creators need to show real creative control, making original, meaningful contributions to the final product. It's not enough to simply approve what AI spits out or even make a few small edits afterwards. What matters most is whether the humans shaped the work in a way that reflects their own creativity and decision making. Now, every new copyright application that involves AI is now reviewed on a case-by-case basis. They're looking closely at the actual role the human played, not just the fact that a human was involved somewhere in the process. So these guidelines really reinforce the idea that collaboration with AI by itself doesn't guarantee ownership. There needs to be substantial human authorship for the work to qualify. Personally, I think this approach makes a lot of sense. It protects the value of copyright by making sure it's still tied to genuine human creativity, not just the ability to prompt an algorithm. So now let's dive in and discuss the more controversial case of a work titled A Single Piece of American Cheese that can be seen on the left-hand side of the video. In this case, an artist allegedly assembled various AI-generated visual elements to create a new piece of artwork. Unlike Zarya of the Dawn, the Copyright Office did in fact grant registration. Not for the AI materials themselves, but for the human's creative arrangement and selection of these images. Invoke, the generative artificial intelligence platform used to help create this art piece, became the first to receive copyright protection for an AI-generated image under the new U.S. Copyright Office guidelines that was posted in 2024. On one hand, it fits traditional ideas. Arranging non-copyrightable material in a highly creative way can sometimes itself be protected. But on the other hand, it raises a concern. If we allow too much copyright protection for minimal selection choices, we risk granting legal rights to works that are overwhelmingly machine-made. This could open the door to copyright claims for outputs that a human barely even touched. Now this leads to the core of my argument. AI outputs should not be fully copyrightable. First, AI lacks true originality. It cannot innovate, imagine, or express personal experiences. Second, giving copyright protection to machine-made works could flood creative industries with low-effort, high-volume content, therefore making it harder for human artists and writers to succeed. And third, it undermines the very purpose of copyright law, which is to protect the personal, emotional, and intellectual investments that humans put into their work. If we start protecting AI-made material, we diminish the value of real human creativity. Of course, AI can still be a valuable tool. It can assist writers, designers, and musicians just like a camera assists a photographer. But we must remember that tools don't deserve copyright. People do. So the right balance is this. Protect the elements that show real human effort, such as story writing, sequencing, editing, and thematic vision. Do not grant automatic copyright to the raw outputs generated by machines. This standard keeps the focus on human expression and not on machine outputs. So my conclusion is this. AI is an exciting and powerful new tool, but it should not change the basic principles of copyright law. Human creativity, the ability to imagine, to feel, and to innovate is what copyright was designed to protect. The decision in Zarya of the Dawn got it right by recognizing only human created portions. Moving forward, we must continue to value true authorship, ensuring that copyright remains a protection for human originality and not machine efficiency. Thank you all so much for listening to my presentation. If you have any questions or comments, I would absolutely love to hear your thoughts.